Good morning. This is Take 10, and I'm Bill Holdridge. Welcome. So we started the other day on the subject of a personal relationship with the Holy Spirit, and this is the second of that particular series. We need the Holy Spirit. Jesus promised that the Holy Spirit would come to his first disciples, the 12 that he'd been with, the 11 minus Judas, that he'd been with for 3.5 years, and the others as well. He promised the Holy Spirit would come in answer to his prayer to the Father. And he said to them, I will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper, a helper that is just like me. Think of me in an invisible form, and you're accurately thinking about the Holy Spirit. That's what Jesus was referring to when he said, I will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper. Not a different kind of helper, not a completely different orientation, different personality, different goals, different purposes. None of that. It's all the same. The Holy Spirit is the invisible person of Christ available to all of Jesus' followers. And so Jesus said, I will pray the Father, he'll give you another helper, the Spirit of truth. And he went on to describe him. So the question for today's time together is, why? Why do we need another helper? Well, to answer that question, let's look at the first disciples. Do you think they needed helpers? Do you think they needed Jesus to be their helper? And of course, the answer is yes. It wasn't a picture of a perfectly put together or trained or competent group of men and women. That wasn't the picture of the disciples in the Gospels. The picture of the disciples in the Gospels is just like you and me. They said the kinds of things you and I would say. They did the same kind of things you and I would do. They failed when they wanted to be strong. They thought they knew something when they didn't. They spoke up when they shouldn't have. They did a lot of things right, but they also did a lot of things not so right. And so they're just like us, and we're just like them. They needed a lot of help, and obviously so do we. The helper, that's who he is. He's the one that's called alongside of us to give us divine aid and to live with us, to enable us to live this life that Jesus has called us to live. That's who the Holy Spirit is. And that's why it's important to have a personal relationship with him. Many years ago, I owned 2 Volkswagens. At the same time, Volkswagen Bugs. And as it would happen, both of them broke down at the same time. One of them was a 1967 Bug, and its problem was the clutch broke. So the clutch needed to be replaced, and for that to happen, the engine had to be pulled. The other Volkswagen was a 1962 Bug, and the engine blew up. And so the engine had to be taken out, and it had to be opened up, and new pistons and all of those things had to be put in it just to restore the engine. I had no money at the time. I had no mechanical experience to speak of at all. Yet I had to get these cars fixed because not only did our livelihood depend upon it, but all of the responsibilities we had in our lives at that time depended upon transportation. So I had to tackle this. Problem is, as I said, I didn't have money. Anyway, didn't have very much money, and I didn't have any expertise. But I did have some things in my corner and working for me. I had a friend, his name was Fred. He owned a gas station in Tustin, California, where I lived, and he was willing to help. And he was willing not to do the work. He couldn't pull himself away from what he was doing to do the work, but he could help me through, counsel on the phone and that kind of thing from time to time. So I had that. Another thing I had was a book called The Idiot Book. It's a manual of step-by-step procedures for the complete idiot who wants to fix his Volkswagen. Well, that was me. I was the complete idiot, and I needed to fix my Volkswagen. Third thing I had was a relationship with the Holy Spirit and a relationship with the Father and with the Son. And I was convinced that the Lord would lead and guide and direct and help me and give me wisdom along the way. So I got started on car number 1 and trusting the Lord and following very fastidiously, very specifically every step that the idiot book told me to take, calling Fred every once in a while for counsel. And finally, the engine got put back in, the clutch was, a new clutch was put in, and all those things happened. There were no extra bolts or screws on the floor, which is a miracle. And so the time had come to start the car. It started on the first try, and the clutch worked, and I put it in first gear and drove out of that driveway a happy man. The car was completely fixed. It was a miracle. Similar story for the 1962 bug. Again, all of those details, having to fix an engine like that, take it into the machine shop, have them do the work, put it back in. It was way over my head. But idiot book, Fred, prayer, and it was time to put the key in, turn it, see what would happen. Voila, it started. Not only did it start, but it ran great, and I drove that car for years. The Lord helped me. He did. I had help. I had the idiot book. I had a life of prayer. I had Fred to be of assistance to me. But what would have happened if I'd have said, nah, I got this. I've never done it before, but it can't be that hard. I got this. I'd have taken the first car apart and put the different parts all over the garage floor, and it would have just been an absolute mess. I would have royally messed up the whole thing. But I didn't have that. The wisest thing in the world would be for me, and the only option I really had would be for me to actually rely upon those sources of help that were available to me. So I relied upon Fred from time to time. I relied upon the idiot book, and I relied upon the Holy Spirit to help me. And I give credit to the Lord to help me do 2 things, fixing those 2 cars that I'd never done before. I was so blessed. I wasn't confident in myself. Now, I didn't think of myself as a great mechanic or anything. I was very confident in the Lord's ability to guide me to the resources and to help me have the wisdom to follow them and rely on them. Well, just in the same way, we have to live the Christian life. We get to live the Christian life. The challenge, live like Jesus. The challenge, let Jesus live in us. Do I think I can do it? No. If I think I can do it, if I think I can control my temper, if I think I can be wise in my use of the tongue, if I think I can love my wife the way she deserves to be loved, all on my own, it's the dumbest thing in the world. It would be like trying to fix those cars without Fred or without the idiot book. That's not what we should do. We should depend upon the Holy Spirit. And that's why we have this wonderful privilege of a personal relationship with the Holy Spirit of God. Learning to get to know Him. Learning to be familiar with Him in a healthy sense. Respecting Him as God, but being very familiar with His ways and His nature, because He is the Spirit of Christ. That's the goal. That's what we need more than anything else, I think, in terms of the living of the Christian life is the work of the Holy Spirit. And He does indeed work, and He does indeed provide His wisdom, His strength, His guidance. When I was first coming into Christ and it was time for me to give up my old ways, I remember thinking, I can't do this. I'll fail. I'll fall flat on my face. But Lord, if you'll give me the willingness and the power to follow you, I'll follow you the rest of my life. Little did I know that the Holy Spirit would come upon me and live inside of me and give me the willingness and the power to live for Him. Oh, not that I've not failed. I've failed many, many times. But I always know where the source of power is and where the source of inspiration and willingness is. It's from the Spirit, the one who lives in me, the one with whom I have relationship. And so do you, if you're a true believer. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. And if you like this video, then click like or hit that subscribe icon, my face there on the upper right-hand side of your screen. And we just are so grateful that you joined us today. See you next time.